Shalom, my Israelite brothers and sisters. So first of all praises to our Elohim and to his only begotten Son, Yehoshua. So this lesson is going to be titled Repeated Mistakes. I'm doing this lesson for several reasons. For one, I really want to show you the importance of being obedient to the Most High. And I want to show you some examples that our forefathers failed to do. And the reason, because of that, is the result of where we are now and the result of our forefathers going into slavery. And now that the Most High is awakening his people, we are waking up by an unprecedented number, brothers and sisters. And a lot of you are coming out of all types of religions, especially Christianity. Some of you are coming out of Islam, Buddhism, atheism, and the Most High is bringing his people out of Babylon. But at the same time, we're being bombarded with so much information because we're coming into this truth. We know it's the last days, and it's like we're having to take what information that we have, and use it to the best of our knowledge and studying. And sometimes it's not enough time to get all the studying you need to do. I said in one of my earlier videos that I had only planned to do one video a month. Now, I'm pretty busy, and it's amazing. I have no idea how I found the time to be putting out one video, sometimes 2 or 3 videos a week. But that was not the plan, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you the truth. The plan was to put out one video a month, but lately the Spirit has been moving upon me, and I don't know, I've just been having an urge just to put out lessons, and it's like a burning fire. So many of you are getting that same experience as well, too. You're getting that same spirit in you. I know that for a fact because I've seen some of your videos, and already some of you Hebrews are already on fire. You're doing lessons already, and that's great because, hey, the more of us that are teaching and doing lessons, the better. So, because, people are hungry, people are starving. And, sometimes I'm afraid that if I don't do one video in a week, y'all going to probably start wondering what's happening to me. Y'all probably going to think that I got snatched up by some heathens or something. So, but anyway, I want to continue on with this lesson. So I want to show you some mistakes that our forefathers made. And some of the stuff that I'm going to share with you is going to blow your mind, and some of you probably already know where I'm going with this. And then I'm going to show you some similar mistakes that we're constantly making today about making excuses not to keep Yah's laws, commandments, and statutes. And that's a very dangerous thing, brothers and sisters, and we all don't have the 100% truth. I realize that, and I realize that a lot of us are coming out, just waking up. We're coming out from a religion, from Christianity, and we were told all our lives that these laws, commandments, and statutes are not important. And when that's ingrained into your head all your life, that's all you know. And the laws were not given to the heathens, brothers and sisters. They were given to Yah's chosen people. So now as we're getting back to Yah's laws, commandments, and statutes and commandments, it's like we're starting all over again. So we're going through a lot of growing pains. We're learning by trial and error. But I want to show you in this lesson that we should not make the same mistakes as our forefathers. And that's what I want to prevent in this lesson. I want to show you some things so that we don't constantly make the same mistakes that our forefathers made that got us into slavery in the first place. Now, before we move on to the lesson, I want y'all to look at this picture y'all got before you. Look at those fringes our ancestors had. Now, this is an ancient, actually drawing. Well, it's not a drawing. It's a carving. So this is how our forefathers dressed. Check out them fringes. Those some tough fringes, aren't they? You see the border of blue. Well, you can't see the blue, of course, but you can see the fringes. You can see the border around their garments and everything. But that's how they wore their fringes. But I just wanted to point that out. So we're going to go ahead and get into the lesson. Now, before we move on, there's something important I need to put out to all of you. Now, this is a heathen alert. There's been some heathens who have been coming on my page posing as Israelites. Now, it took me a minute to figure it out, but after doing some digging, going to their pages and searching, and some other searching, I found out that these are heathens posing as Israelite brothers and sisters. I'm telling you, these heathen devils are clever. So what they're doing is that they're using, for photos, they're using the so-called black people for their avatars and creating Israelite names for themselves. Now, I've only discovered just one doing this. Now, we don't know how many more are doing this. And I'm finding out that there's other Hebrews too. They're talking about people coming on their page posing as Israelites. See, brothers and sisters, they know we're waking up. They know that we are getting back to these laws, commandments, and statutes. And you can be talking to someone and you don't even know if they're a heathen or not. That's crazy. So I'm going to tell you this, brothers and sisters. If they're trying to get you not to keep the laws, commandments, and statutes, and they're telling you that you don't have to keep it, then that should automatically raise some red flags. So because I don't know who all comes on my page. I try to get with the comments and everything. I try to answer to majority of the people as much as I can. But like I said, I don't know if they're posing as an Israelite, if they're a heathen posing as an Israelite or not. I have no way of knowing that. And some of the pages, when I check their pages, sometimes their pages are blank, so you really can't find anything that links them to being a heathen. But there's one particular one that I did. So, I'm just letting you know, brothers and sisters, just be alert. And, if they're trying to get you to not keep the laws, then something's up with that. So just wanted to put that out. And this is the main reason why I'm doing this video. So to combat these crazy devil heathens who are posing as Israelites, using our pictures and using our Israelite names so they can come on and try to mislead you. So this was important to put out, So I just want you all to be aware of what's going on here. So we're going to go ahead and go over to John 11. We're going to talk about some misinterpretation that some Hebrews make in reference to the Shabbat. So I want to just cover some things. Now we're going to talk about some mistakes that Hebrews making in this day, and then we're going to talk about some mistakes that our forefathers have made, and pretty much similar mistakes, but much worse actually. So let's go to John 11 and verse 9. Now some Hebrews, they read this and they equate it with the Shabbat to justify that we should only keep the Shabbat 12 hours of the day. But I'm going to prove to you that this is not even talking about a 24-hour time period. Yehoshua is making a point here. So let's start with reading with verse 9. And it says, Yehoshua answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. So you got some Hebrews, they'll just read that first part where it says, Are there not 12 hours in a day? And then they'll leave it at that. And see, a lot of you Hebrews are new and you still have that mindset of Christianity. So and this is what the first day churches do. They take a small portion of a verse and they just run with it. So let's break this down in its entirety, because you got to read it in its context. And if you read the whole chapter, you'll realize that it's not talking about a 24-hour time period. So Yehoshua is making a point here. If there's 12 hours, there's 12 hours in a day. So in other words, he's talking about light. So roughly there is light when you think about it. From roughly 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. we have light. You can see. This is what Yehoshua is referring to. But look what he says further. If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. Now I want you to look at verse 10 very closely. It says, But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. So Yehoshua is not making a reference in a 24-hour time period. He's making a reference to our sinful condition, brothers and sisters. That's what this verse is talking about. So because there is no light in him, he's talking about stumbling. He's referring to the night as our sins, brothers and sisters. We shouldn't be walking in darkness. That's what this is talking about. But you have some new Hebrews that just, they take this verse and try to equate it with the Shabbat. It has nothing to do with that. You got to read the whole verse in its context, and you got to read verse 10, because verse 10 explains to you what it's really talking about. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth. It's an allegory. Yehoshua is making a point. If we continue to walk in our sins, brothers and sisters, we're going to stumble. That's what this verse is talking about. It has nothing to do with keeping the Shabbat for 12 hours. That's silly, and it's very retarded, because it shows that you don't take the time to really study the scriptures. You can't just take one little piece of verse and then you just run with it. That's the mistake that we're making in this day and time, brothers and sisters. We can't do that. Now let's go back up and read verse 9 again. It says, Yehoshua answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? Now get this, if any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. He's also referring to himself as well too in this, and that's why the Pharisees had a problem with Yehoshua, because they didn't want to believe that he was the son of Elohim. Anyway, we all know the story about that. So we just got to make sure, brothers and sisters, when we read things, we got to read it in its entire context. This has nothing to do with keeping the Shabbat for 12 hours of the day. So, what are you going to do? You're going to keep 12 hours of the Shabbat and then you're going to transgress the rest of it? Okay, good luck with that. When Yehoshua breaks that sky, you're going to be in for one hell of a surprise. All right, let's go with Genesis chapter 1. We're going to deal with another misinterpretation that some Hebrews get confused on. So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 1, and I'm going to start off with verse 5. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Now, some Hebrews read this, and they think that the light is one separate day, and they think that the darkness is another separate day. But that's not what this is talking about. When it said that the Most High called the light day and the darkness he called night, it's a single day, because when we read throughout the scripture, I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to point something out to you very important. And I'm going to prove to you that the Most High started his day off with the evening. In other words, the sunset. And if you can, and I would encourage you, brothers and sisters, to study the Septuagint. It's one of the earliest Bibles out there, and it's a little more reliable than the King James Version, and you will get a clearer understanding of that. But let me give you some examples here. So let's look at verse 5, and I'm going to read the last part where it says, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So notice that the Most High starts off, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Well, this is what trips some Hebrews up. So they look at where it says morning. Now, you got to realize, brothers and sisters, our forefathers measured the day from the setting of the sun. Our forefathers did not have a time clock. Elohim did not have a time clock when he was creating everything on this earth, brothers and sisters. He didn't go by a time clock by 6 a.m. and call this the morning, or 12 p.m. noon. This was something that man came up with thousands of years later. That's why the Most High created the stars in the heaven, to give us the signs of the rotation of the earth around the sun. That was the whole purpose. So when you read, and the evening and the morning were the first day, it's talking about a complete set cycle around the rotation of the earth, which we call a 24-hour time period, brothers and sisters. Let me prove it to you even further. Let's go to verse 8. And I'm going to read that last part again. And the evening and the morning were the second day. You see, brothers and sisters, people look at this, the morning, and they think that it stopped somewhere in the morning. Elohim does not have a time clock. He's measuring each day by the evening, the setting of the sun. Let's go some more. Let's prove it some more. Let's go with verse 13. It says, and the evening and the morning were the third day. Go to verse 19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Let's go to verse 23. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And it continues out, brothers and sisters. So let me ask you a question. What time period does the Most High starts his day off with? The morning or the evening? It's the evening. And then if you notice, it comes back to the next day. So let's go back and recap a little bit so you can get this clear understanding where I'm coming from. So the evening and the morning were the first day, verse 5. Go to verse 8. Guess what it starts off with again? The evening and the morning were the second day. So each time the Most High is starting his day off with the evening. Now I'm going to prove it to you again with the feast days, because all your feast days, including your weekly Sabbaths, are measured from the sunset to sunset. This is what our forefathers went by. You can study this throughout the scriptures, brothers and sisters. There's no way that we can get around this. So this is not a 12-hour period as some people are teaching. That's not what it's talking about. It's referring to from even to even. It's the full day. But people look at where it says in the evening and the morning, and they get thrown off because they're thinking that it's a 12-hour time period, because you have this time clock in your minds, brothers and sisters. But our forefathers didn't go by a time clock. We didn't have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 a.m. and so forth. Either it was night or it was day. That's how the Most High divided the whole day, the 24-hour cycle. Because there's 12 hours, as we read in John, there's 12 hours in a day. So roughly from 6 in the morning to about 6 in the evening is light. And then the rest of the time is darkness. So, just continue to do your research, brothers and sisters. I mean, this is really simple, but you got people who want to add their own things into it, and it's clearly that the Most High always starts his day from the evening. And notice it didn't say, and the morning and the evening were the first day. It says the evening and the morning were the first day. It was a complete cycle. It was a complete 24-hour cycle, brothers and sisters. Now, this Gentile heathen that was posing as an Israelite, this is the thing that he was trying to disprove, because he was trying to say that this was the reason why we didn't need to keep the Sabbath. That's why I found out he was a heathen once I went to his page, and then I deleted him and deleted all his comments. So he won't be back on my page no more. But for the rest of you Hebrews that are still confused, you cannot get around it. The Most High made it clear from even to evening is what he measured his 24-hour cycle by, what we call 24-hour cycle now, the complete rotation of the earth. And I mean, you can go back over it, but just look where it starts from. It always starts from evening. It starts from evening, from the first day all the way to the last day. It starts from evening, So just continue to research that, brothers and sisters. But we're going to get some more so I can prove to you even further that the Most High measured his days from evening, not to evening to what you call 6 o'clock in the morning, but from evening to evening. So, for example, the day is Sunday, right? So, actually, the sun went down on Shabbat roughly around 6 o'clock. So that will begin Sunday. So when the sun sets again on Sunday, then it's going to be Monday. See, and this is what our forefathers went by, because we didn't have the time clocks like we have today. All right, let's go to Leviticus chapter 23. Let's look at some more proof here. Leviticus chapter 23, and we're going to read verses 7 and 8. It says, "In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no severe work therein." Now, this is talking about the Passover, brothers and sisters. And anytime we have a feast day, it always starts off as a Sabbath, as a Shabbat, and you treat it just like the Shabbat. You don't work. You don't do any of those things that you normally do on the weekly Shabbat. However, on some feast days, you can cook. Make that clear. That's the only difference between some of the feast Sabbaths and the regular Sabbath. which pretty much they are the same day, but they start off the same. They are measured from sunset to sunset. Let's look at verse 8. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Elohim 7 days, and the seventh day is an holy convocation. So it always started off as the first day being the Shabbat of the feast day, and the last day of being the Shabbat of the feast day. Ye shall do no severe work therein. That means no buying and selling as well, too. But I'm going to show you an example of this because Yehoshua, he did something to these crazy Hebrews that was doing something they shouldn't have been doing on Passover. And I'm going to show it to you what they were doing. That's why I wanted to read this verse. Now, later on, I'll be doing lessons on the feast days. I'm going to do a lesson on the feast days as they come around. But for right now, I just want to focus on the point that I'm trying to get out to you all. All right, let's go over to John chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 13. I'm going to show you what our crazy forefathers were doing around Passover. So let's start with verse 13. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Yehoshua went up to Jerusalem. So the Passover had just begun. Verse 14. And found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changers of money sitting. Now, brothers and sisters, you're not supposed to buy and sell on the first day of the Passover. You're not supposed to do that. You can cook, but you cannot buy or sell. Now, look what it says in verse 15. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, meaning that he took some cords, and these cords had to been like some leather or something. Read that part again. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple. Now, you got to be visual here, brothers and sisters. Now, can you imagine Yehoshua taking these cords, wrapping them up, and literally beating the hell out these Hebrews because they were profaning the temple by selling and buying? Read that part again. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables. Man, Hamashiach was pissed because, here you are, you breaking Yah's laws. No wonder our people kept going into slavery and, being at the bottom because they didn't want to do right. Look what it says in verse 16. And said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my father's house a house of merchandise. So for one, they were breaking the Passover. Secondly, they were selling in the temple. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, we had some crazy forefathers. They were off the chain. And no wonder the Most High calls us stiff-necked, because we don't want to do right. So I wanted to share this with you since we're on the subject of Passover. So that way we don't make the same mistake. Because some of you stiff-necked Hebrews, some of you don't even want to keep the Shabbat. That's why you come on my page and try to make an excuse to only keep 12 hours of it, but you really don't want to keep none of it anyway. So, don't keep it. If you don't want to keep the Shabbat, then to hell with you. Don't keep it. Just go back into Christianity. Go back to where you came from. Do the Most High a favor. Don't keep his laws at all. All right, so let's go back to Leviticus chapter 23. And this time we're going to read verse 32. And this is in reference to the Day of Atonement. So it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls. In the 9th day of the month at even, from even unto even, shall ye celebrate your Sabbath. So anytime we're dealing with the Sabbath, brothers and sisters, whether it's a weekly Sabbath, the Shabbat, or the feast Sabbath, we are to keep it from sunset to sunset, or from evening to evening. It's very clear. The weekly Shabbat is no different from the feast day Shabbats. The only difference with the feast day Shabbats is some feast day Shabbats you can cook. That's the only exception, brothers and sisters, that you can cook. Other than that, you got to treat it just like you do a weekly Shabbat. All right, so let's go to Ezekiel chapter 22. I'm going to show you something else our crazy forefathers did. So let's look at verse 26. It says, her priests have violated my law and have profaned my holy things. It's talking about the feast days. And they have put no difference between the holy and profane. Y'all hear that, saints? And our forefathers were off the chain. It says, neither have they showed differences between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths. Let me read that again. And have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profane among them. So like you stiff-necked Hebrews, some of you stiff-necked Hebrews that want to say you can only keep the Shabbat for 12 hours and then transgress the rest, not realizing that the day and the night is a complete full cycle of a 24-hour period. You go right ahead. You keep on doing that. You keep on disobeying the Most High, and you're going to see where you end up. And this is no difference from our forefathers. We're doing the same thing. You know why? And that's why we're scattered, brothers and sisters. It's because of people like certain stiff-necked Hebrews that want to make every excuse not to keep Yah's commandments, laws, and statutes. And this is what's holding us up. It's people like those, brothers and sisters. And then you guys keep complaining that it's getting rough on this earth. You keep complaining like you ready for Yehoshua to return. But brothers and sisters, some of us are not even ready yet because we don't even want to keep the laws. Our forefathers didn't want to keep the laws, and now we don't want to keep the laws. So that's a problem. That's a problem. That's why we're going to go through so much persecution. That's why we're going to go through so much trials and tribulations, because the Most High has to weave that out of us, brothers and sisters. He's going to have to weave all this Christianity mess that's been implanted in us for so many years. All right, let me give you another example of some terrible mistakes our forefathers made. So let's go to Amos chapter 8 and verse 5. It says, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn and the Sabbath? Man, it sounds like some of y'all with y'all comments. Y'all just can't wait for the Sabbath to be over with. You don't want to honor the Shabbat. You just want to keep it for 12 hours. If it was up to some of y'all would just keep it for 1 hour. Let's continue. That we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. Now, this is crazy, saints. And, y'all can read back over this, but this is the stuff that the Most High had to deal with our forefathers. And you wonder why he was so frustrated with us? Verse 6, that we may buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of shoes, yea, and sell the refuse of the wheat. I mean, man, our people was just wicked, just straight up wicked. And, and it's like that today, brothers and sisters. There's nothing new under the sun. We're carrying those same characteristics that our forefathers carried. That's why I'm doing these videos, because I get tired of seeing our people make the same mistake over and over and over again, So, but hey, what is it going to take for us to really get it? Is it going to take some more slavery? Is it going to take some more bondage for us to get it right? But yet we want to keep complaining that things are getting rough on us. Well, go figure. All right, let's go to Ezekiel chapter 8. And I want to really show you something that's going to blow your minds, brothers and sisters. Our forefathers were off the chain. Seriously. And it's like they just didn't give a damn. All right, so let's go to Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 15. Then said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. Verse 16. And he brought me into the inner court of Elohim's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of Elohim, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs toward the temple of Elohim and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east. See, brothers, this is the stuff that our forefathers kept messing up on. Because all this going after the heathens, going after these other nations, and I'm really just thankful that the Most High still, after all of this, he still considers us the apple of his eye. It's unbelievable, brothers and sisters. But yet we still don't get it. We still seem to be following in the same footsteps as our forefathers. Let's go to verse 17. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah? Judah, y'all, that they commit the abominations which they commit here. So this is Judah committing this stuff. Their backs towards the temple and their faces towards the sun. They worshiping the sun. Man, for they have filled the land with violence and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. Now, some of you Hebrews, if you're watching this video, this should bring tears to your eyes. And I know this feels like an ass chewing for some of you, but in a sense it is, because like I said earlier, I get sick and tired of seeing our brothers and sisters make the same mistakes over and over and over and over. You know, and maybe it's a good thing we're at the bottom right now. You know, maybe it's a good thing that we are scattered, because, you know, we're not ready to come together as a people yet. You know, because we can't even get past the Shabbat, brothers and sisters. What makes you think that we're ready to enter into the new kingdom and we can't even agree on the Shabbat? And you got some stiff-necked ass Hebrews that think they can just keep the Shabbat for 12 hours and they're going to be okay. No, brothers and sisters. We can't get past that. We can't go to the next step. I hate to break it to you. You know, so for you stiff-necked Hebrews that want to keep playing with the Most High, you keep on. He's going to keep delaying his coming. And guess what? We're going to have to stay on this earth a little longer. We're going to have to be under our slave masters a little longer. You know, because we don't want to get it right. We want to continue to want to do our own thing. We don't want to keep the laws. We don't want nothing to do with them. Trying to make every excuses, just like our forefathers did. I mean, go read the book of Hosea. The Most High had to give our people, our forefathers, a bill of divorcement. That's how bad it got, brothers and sisters, because they wanted so badly to go after these other nations, these other gods, until the Most High grafted them back in during Yahushua's ministry and Paul's and apostles. So, you know, we can't keep making the same mistakes as our forefathers. Brothers and sisters, did y'all all know that when our forefathers came out of Egypt, when they were when they were wandering in the wilderness, did y'all know that it was only supposed to take a little less than 4 days from Egypt to the promised land? That's it, brothers and sisters, just 4 days. But it took them 40 years. Why did it take them 40 years? Because the same things that we're doing today, moaning and crying and complaining and bitching because you don't want to keep the Shabbat, you don't want to keep the laws. I only want to keep it for 12 hours. I only want to keep it for 5 hours. Why we got to keep this? Why we got to do this? Why we got to eat this? Why we got to follow the dietary laws? Why we got to do it this way? You know, it's the same stuff that is delaying the Most High is coming. And seems like we just don't get it. I don't know what it's going to take, brothers and sisters, but, you know, I'm going to keep sounding the alarm. But if we don't get it right, then, you know, we may be here another 20 years. So let's get our acts together. Now I'm going to show you something else crazy our forefathers did that was so stupid. You know, after all the plagues of Egypt, after all the miracles, you know, they still doubted the Most High. Now, I'm going to show you a clip from the Ten Commandments. We know that these characters are not the true people of the Most High, but I want you to get a visual so you can see what's going on here. So let's go to Exodus chapter 32, and I'm going to read verse 6. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. So in other words, they got drunk. I mean, they got loose. They were doing all kind of stuff, all kind of vile affections. You can read the whole book of Exodus, chapter 32, and it goes into more detail, but it's crazy, brothers and sisters. So the point I wanted to make was, even after all the plagues of Egypt, after all the miracles, you know, after all the things that the Most High did for our people in the wilderness, they still doubted, which led to this. And no wonder the Most High kept getting frustrated with our people, because our people were constantly doing evil. It seems like no matter what the Most High showed our people, no matter what miracles were showed unto our people, we always seems like we wanted to go after other nations and go after other gods and be like the heathen nations. And it's no difference today. It's just crazy, brothers and sisters. So I just wanted to share this with you, and some of the mistakes that our forefathers made in the past and the same mistakes that we're making today. And this is why we got to avoid this, because in Amos 1:9 it says that, what do you imagine against Elohim? Sin shall not rise, or affliction shall not rise the second time. We're not going to be making the same mistakes again once the new kingdom gets here, brothers and sisters. That's it. So the time is now, and whatever is going to be weaved out, that's why the Most High says that he's going to allow the wheats and the tares to grow together, and he's going to do the separating when he comes back. So in this lesson, I just wanted to touch on the mistakes that our forefathers kept making. And I could have been here all day, because there's so much accounts throughout the word of the Most High of the mistakes our forefathers made, and I wanted to compare them to the mistakes that we're making today. So we need to stop making the same mistakes of our forefathers of the past, so we can get up on out of here. And that's the whole purpose. We learn from our forefathers so that we don't have to make the same mistakes. But it seems like we're falling right into the same shoes of our forefathers. So I really pray that you really got the points that were brought out in this lesson. So I'm going to leave you with Revelation chapter 14:12. Here's the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of Elohim and have the faith of Yehoshua. So brothers and sisters, I say shalom and stay strong.